Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days. For today's video, it could take us to around the 11th of November. So it looks like going into a more unsettled phase of weather. Been a lot of dry weather really through this autumn. But it does look as though the Atlantic is cranking up to some degree. Now there's a little bit of complication with this in that we're not sure how far into the country we're going to push this unsettled weather. So it does look as though the most unsettled conditions are likely to be in the north and the west, with the east always getting the driest of the weather. But I'll tell you for everything that's going on with the computer models for the next week to 10 days very shortly. Very busy day at GasWeatherViz today, first day of November, so that means we've got Terry Scully's November forecast coming up. You'll be able to see what Terry is forecasting for November around 5 o'clock this evening. I think Terry's forecast has gone very, very well over the past few months, which is really amazing considering how unusual weather has been over the past few months. But I think Terry's done very well. So have a look at Terry Scully's November forecast around 5 o'clock this evening. And then 7 o'clock, it's the one that I've been promising you. It's the first Christmas update. I know a lot of you are waiting for these. Remember, they're just for fun, really. It's just to have a bit of a laugh and see what CFSV2 is showing. As we get a bit closer to Christmas, and it all gets a little bit more serious. But at this point of the year, it's just kind of like to set it up and see what the CFSV2 is showing. So that'll be with you at 7 o'clock this evening. At the same time, we've opened the Christmas shop for another year. So you've got any Christmas shop to do at Amazon. You can do it through the Christmas shop. I'll talk you through all of that at the beginning of the Christmas update. But before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big, big thank you to our latest donor for GasWeatherViz. So got to say a big thank you, give a shout out, I'm going to say a big thank you to Rachel Spurdens. Big thank you to Rachel for becoming the latest donor for GasWeatherViz via PayPal. So if you would like to make a one-off donation to GasWeatherViz via PayPal, as Rachel has done, then all you have to do is come to the GasWeatherViz.me PayPal page. And this is it, I'm on that page right now. We linked this at all the pages at GasWeatherViz and in the description at YouTube. So you just come here, sign into your PayPal account. Most people have one of those these days. And you can pledge a one-off donation to GasWeatherViz, and by doing that, you will be having us to support the channels, the website. You'll be able to keep all the content completely free of charge. So big thank you to Rachel and all of the other donors for GasWeatherViz. A huge success since we started this in June. Totally blown away by how generous you have been. So a big thank you to all of the donors for GasWeatherViz. You'll get a mention in the video, as Rachel has done today. You're going to get a thank you from myself. Unless you'd rather stay anonymous. If you would like to stay anonymous, then you just leave a little note with your donation. Say you'd rather not be mentioned. A few people have chosen to do that, and that's absolutely fine if that's what you'd like. And we'll still do you a thank you. We'll just say thank you to this anonymous donor, and you'll know who you are. I know who you are, and that's absolutely fine. So big thank you to all of the donors to GasWeatherViz. Alternatively, if you'd rather become a patron for GasWeatherViz, and this is kind of like an ongoing sort of monthly donation, although of course you can cancel it at any time. But it's a ongoing donation, and if you'd like to become a patron for GasWeatherViz, then this is GasWeatherViz patron page. So you just come here, sign up for a patron account, and then you can pledge any amount of money you would like as an ongoing donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards. And again, a big thank you to all of the patrons for GasWeatherViz. We've got 36 patrons so far, so a big, big thank you to all of our patrons for GasWeatherViz. Can we get that up to 50 before the end of the year? Probably be a tough ask, but it'd be nice if we could. But a big thank you to all of the donors, a big thank you to all of the patrons for GasWeatherViz, and a special thank you again to Rachel Spurdens for becoming GasWeatherViz's latest patron. And without further ado, I think we better get on with your first video for today. So we're going to begin by having a look at the central England temperature. So this has just been released from Hadley, been following the CET all month, of course. And quite remarkable, really, because this was running way above average earlier on in the month. But we've come out at 10.6, can you believe, as our CET for October 2018, which is a real reduction on where it was a couple of weeks ago. You may remember a couple of Saturdays ago, we was up at into mid-20s Celsius with exceptionally warm air wafting across the country from the tropical Atlantic. So to finish up at 10.6, which is almost bang on average, whether that be 61 to 1990. I think it is actually bang on 61 to 1990. And it's a little bit above average for 71 to 2000, and it's 0.1 of a degree below average, I think, for 81 to 2010. Someone will correct me about that. But really, if you're within half a degree of average either side, so if you're within half a degree above average or you're within half a degree below average, you basically have an average season. So we can say an average month. So we can say that this October has come out pretty much bang on average. And that follows September, which also came out pretty much bang on average as well. Just a slight deviation of about 0.2 of a degree, I think. But basically, both September and October coming out average. And that means that it's all down to November, really, this autumn. November will be the deciding month as to where this autumn finishes. But if we was to have a colder than average November, then, because the other 2 months have come out at average, we would actually have a colder than average autumn. So a cold and average autumn is not out of a question, which is quite remarkable given what happened in the summer. Of course, we had this exceptionally hot summer with June coming out with CET at 16.1, July coming out with CET at 19.1, exceptionally hot month, and pretty warm in August too. It wasn't as warm compared to average, but even so, at 16.6, August was above average as well. So after such a hot summer, quite remarkable that we've had a fairly dramatic sort of cool down, really, compared to the summer for this autumn. And it all hinges on November now as to what is going to happen, where we're going to finish up in terms of the temperature for this autumn. On the CET page at Gazworthies, by the way, have got the CET back to 1659 now incorporated into Gazworthies. If you're waiting for the UK-wide data, that's why it's a little bit later coming through. We will be able to analyse that for you in a day or so's time. So I know a lot of you are outside the CET region and you want to know what's happened in your area. We will be able to bring you that UK-wide data in a day or so's time, where it takes Hadley a little bit longer to update that. The first thing we get is always a CET, and then in a day or so's time, we'll be able to bring you the UK-wide data. Right, so let's move on to doing a little bit of forecasting. These are the 500 millibar height only flowcharts for the next week to 10 days from Penn State University. We've got the E7WF here on the top. The GFS, which I'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars. FS feet is an area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure. I've been moved around by a jet stream running above. Yellow and orange and red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. You can see what the ECM is showing in the 7 to 10 day time frame. This will take us through the first 10 days of November, with a deep area of below average heights over into the west of the UK, and quite a strong jet stream coming across the Atlantic. So that looks unsettled. There's no getting around that. We've got a deep area of low pressure, deep trough of low pressure to the west of the country, and we are bringing in those Atlantic winds. We have got quite a blocking signal, interestingly, up to our north. There is above average height sitting to the north of the UK, also extending back to this ridge across central and southern parts of Europe. So in this sort of position, although we have got a blocking signal, we're not bringing up any particularly cold air because the flow is going to be coming up rather like that. So to get cold weather out of this blocking feature up here, and as I say, it is a bit of a blocking feature, but we've got there, we've got to reduce these heights around here. So essentially we've got to push the trough and the jet stream in that sort of direction, where we've got all of these above average heights across central parts of Europe. And then with the high pressure up here, we would be able then to start pushing out cold air from the pole. But it's just one of those situations at the moment where the troughs and the ridges aren't quite aligned to bring us anything particularly cold. So just unsettled and rather mild with that. And the GFS GFS is very similar. So again, we've got this blocking signal up to the north and the northeast, a big ridge of above average heights sitting across much of Central Eastern Europe and going up to the north as well. And then this deep trough is out in the Atlantic, very deep area of low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, with quite a strong jet stream indicated by the black lines pushing in across the country. So you would look at that and think we're going to be in for a very unsettled spell of weather with that deep trough just to our west. Of course, the ridge in the east is just allowing more eastern parts of the country to get some slightly drier conditions, just perhaps fending off that trough of low pressure and its weather fronts at times. But overall, this does look a very unsettled and a very changeable pattern. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks looking like this. Looking at Slough in the south of England today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Slough. Could be still a little bit cooler than average in the next 24 hours, but over the weekend and into next week, we're going milder than average. And basically, through this sort of first half of September, we now go up to the 15th to the 17th of September now, just there. Through this first half of November, I should say, it does look generally above average with the upper air temperature. So it looks like we're in for a mild, relatively mild anyway, first half to November. Precipitation-wise, it looks more unsettled again with these ensembles this morning. Not too much rain over the next couple of days, but over the weekend and into next week, rainfall spikes are coming back. So rather unsettled, quite wet at times, and relatively mild through probably the first half of September. Let's say the first week to 10 days of September. Temperature anomalies look like that from the 1st to the 9th. They're coming out a little bit above average for the UK and Ireland, although the real warmth remains in that eastern and southeastern part of Europe. Down here, around the Balkans, over to the Black Sea, we've got temperature anomalies of 8 to 10 degrees above average, exceptionally mild conditions in the southeast of Europe. Yes, it is a bit milder than average for the UK and Ireland, around sort of 0 to 2 degrees above average is our anomaly, but nowhere near as mild as it is in that southeastern corner. Precipitation-wise, we're looking like this. Overall, close to average, really. These charts have trended a little bit more unsettled, I think, over the past sort of 24 hours since we looked at them yesterday. Still not particularly wet, though, you have to say. So this is how the GFS is looking for Sunday. Unsettled conditions, low pressure is out to the northwest of the country, quite a deep area of low pressure out to west-northwest, bringing in these westerly winds. And then as we go through into Monday and Tuesday, when it looks like we're staying unsettled, low pressure's out to west, high pressure's to the east. This area of low pressure in the west will be bringing in more wet weather into western parts of the country on Tuesday. That's spreading eastwards through into Wednesday. Then we're up to the second half of next week. Again, the low pressure's out to west, the high pressure is to the east. It means wet weather is coming into the west, but how much of that rain is getting over to the eastern side of the country remains to be seen. Moving up towards day 10, increasingly unsettled, really. This is how things are looking on Saturday the 10th of November, with a deep area of low pressure out to western Scotland, bringing in quite heavy rain and some strong winds as well. That's how things look at day 10, into a definitively unsettled spell of weather then. Low pressure is very dominant. Its central pressure is 970 millibars just west of Scotland. So wet and fairly coolish conditions as well. The air around that low pressure is not particularly warm. Actually, it's coming in from the north of the Atlantic like that. So it's not particularly warm. It's quite cool, but very unsettled as we get to day 10, Sunday, 11th of November, Remembrance Sunday, of course. Beyond that, into the extended range, very unsettled conditions continue. Actually, perhaps things are going a little bit stormy here as we're running up towards the middle part of November. That's how things look as we get to day 10, which is Saturday the 17th, not day 10, the end of the GFS run, which is Saturday 17th of November. So we're breaking this low pressure apart. It looks like the Atlantic is beginning to weaken a little bit with high pressure up to the northeast. Could that take us into a colder but drier second half of November? There is a suggestion at the moment, but we might have a colder second half to November. The GFS might just be hinting at that on this particular chart as we end the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. ECM looking like this, unsettled conditions over the weekend and into the start of next week. In fact, increasingly unsettled weather with this low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic with its weather fronts through the course of next week. There will be rain for all of us, but it will be particularly in the north and in the west. That's how we finish up with the ECM day 10, which is again Remembrance Sunday, 11th of November. Looks very unsettled for those Remembrance Sunday commemorations. There's bound to be a lot of wet weather in with that. Quite windy too. Tightly packed isobaths to the south of this low pressure could bring gale force winds across Ireland, England and Wales. And not overly warm either, because the air again is coming from the northern part of the Atlantic around that area of low pressure. Finally, the GM, and that is again looking very unsettled over the weekend and into start of next week. Maybe a little bit closer with this ridge to our east through the first half of next week, so possibly drier for eastern parts of the country early next week. Always most unsettled out in the west with that area of low pressure. In the more extended range going up towards day 10, where it turns very unsettled, so that's quite stormy on Saturday, 10th of November, and it continues to be very, very unsettled indeed at day 10, which is Sunday the 11th of November. Very unsettled conditions indeed. If this is right, we are in for quite an unsettled spell through the first week to 10 days of November. Finally, just leaving you with the 5-day accumulated precipitation. So this is how it's looking in the next 5 days. This is from weatheroutlook.com based on the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. So not too much rain in the next 5 days. A little bit across East Anglia, South East England. That's down to some wet weather that we've got today. And a little bit in the west as well. So Wales is around 20 millimetres or so, as is northwestern England. Southwest Scotland looks the wettest, possibly going up to around 80 millimetres in the next sort of 5 days. And Northern Ireland, a little bit unsettled there. However, most places are into single numbers with their 5-day accumulated precipitation. So most places relatively dry actually in the next 5 days. But the 10 days do go more unsettled. So most places going into double digits. Anyway, these eastern parts of the country where it's driest, we're going to between around sort of 10 to 15 millimetres. Many southern areas going from around 20 to 30 millimetres. Wales going up to around 40 millimetres, maybe a bit more in the west of Wales. Southwest Scotland, northwest England between around 50 and 100 millimetres there. Quite wet, and Northern Ireland also going quite wet as well. Notice the Republic of Ireland down in the far south of Ireland goes really wet there. 130 millimetres of rain for some parts of the Irish Republic in the next 10 days. So we seem to be going into a more unsettled phase. I think we can say that pretty definitively, and it may get even more unsettled actually as we go into the second week of November. So this first week of November will be changeable, but there probably will still be dry conditions in eastern parts of the country, and then by the time we get through the second week of November, maybe going very, very unsettled indeed. All the time, the temperatures aren't going to be particularly cold, so probably close to average temperatures really, although there will be milder and cooler days alternating. And then all eyes will be on the second half of the month to see whether we turn things colder in the second half of November. And I'm sure Tony Scott will have more on that with his November forecast, which will, as I say, be coming up around 5 o'clock this evening at Gazovez. That's always a really interesting read. And then, of course, 7 o'clock tonight, so one you've been waiting for, or maybe not. We've got the first Christmas 2018 update. Have a look at the CFS V2 from metroseo.fr, and for the first time, well, not really the first time, because I've been including it in some of the daily videos, but for the first time in terms of actual Christmas updates, we'll have a look and do your first Christmas video update at 7 o'clock tonight. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.